Friday afternoon to you, 4 o'clock time for Sports4CLE. Thanks for joining us. Hope your weekend is off to a good start. Day 2 of training camp for the Browns out at the Greenbrier in West Virginia. And a little bit longer practice today, the first 11-on-11 offense versus defense session. And Deshaun Watson taking his first 11-on-11 snaps. Still shells, no, just the helmets and shorts. Finds Amari Cooper a couple times. Cedric Tillman inside this time. Also during the drill portion of it, the 7-on-7s, a couple of passes to Elijah Moore as Watson back-to-back days with throwing as he continues to kind of ramp up and come back from the shoulder surgery. Some more to Elijah Moore. Also some drills with the linebackers, Jordan Hicks, JOK, a couple of very fast-moving linebackers doing some work out at the Greenbrier. Let's welcome in Brad Ward from the Orange and Brown Report, All Eyes on Cleveland podcast. So, Brad, Kevin Stefanski announced yesterday he will continue to call the plays. Not a surprise to me. I've been on record as saying if he wants to continue calling plays, great. If he thinks somebody else is better suited to call plays, great. He decided he's calling plays.
Yeah, I think that's where he's most effective, Dave. He's good at it, in my opinion. He's excellent at it. He's very good with play sequencing. I think he has a good feel for games. I think, he took the time and probably out of the respect for the hire of Ken Dorsey to, talk this through, make sure that, this was right. But I think, where else will he be more impactful is kind of like my thing, right? And this is something that I think he has a gift for. So I don't know why you would go away from that. So as long as he has a connection with what they're doing offensively to the point where and the thing a lot of people discount, Dave, is it's a collaborative process. He is the mouth expressing the words into Deshaun's helmet. And if, Deshaun talked about it on his podcast this summer, they already have a shorthand there, right? Like he kind of mentioned a couple times on the show about how good Kevin was at kind of laying out the situation for him before they cut that sound off in your helmet, even after a play call. So they already have that relationship, that shorthand. It just makes sense. I'm a fan of this. I didn't think that it would be any different than this, and it's not surprising to me. I also do think that, Ken Dorsey's presence up in the booth, collaborating with him is all positive stuff there. So
two things. The reason he got the job is because of his offensive mind, and he hasn't had the ability to work with a quarterback that has the upside of Deshaun Watson. So I have no issue with it whatsoever. As I said, he gets to make that call. He's earned the right to make that call. This is really good news. Nick Chubb, after practice, running full sprints, cutting, showing the agility, the things that you want to see. Have heard from a number of people who were there just how impressive it was. Owner Jimmy Haslam watched. Again, the Browns did not allow anybody to videotape it. It was him and Hines running and doing things with the medical staff. But it sure sounds like Nick Chubb is trending every way you want to have his surgically repaired knee ready to go.
He's not human. It doesn't feel like he's human. Like it's far. I mean, to read that about the cutting and the the agility. That was the next step, right? We saw the strength. We saw him doing the balance stuff with, and everybody talked about how he was ahead of schedule then. And even the guy that we have on our show, Dr. Jesse Morse, he works with a lot of NFL players, was like, great, his strength's back. The next thing we need to see him is him cutting on that knee, and it certainly sounds like he was doing that today. So incredible, and just another testament to what a warrior he is, right? He's just not going to be stopped. We were kind of talking ahead of time. They're probably going to have to pull the reins back on him a little bit to ramp him up, I would think the first thing you want him to do is take in X amount of carries, and I don't know when that'll be, but certainly nothing but good news here, and very, very good news for the Browns.
All right, let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Yeah, this is Carl calling from Rochester, New York. Oh boy, we have another year of Kevin Stefanski calling the plays. Boy, the offense is really going to be different. I can't wait to see this. Go Browns!
Carl, I am so glad that you're excited about the offense and the new look offense. That is just outstanding. It's really good that you've come over and are embracing the offensive mind that is Kevin Stefanski. I'm really happy about that. Listen, Carl, and anybody else that's questioning this, Kevin Stefanski could have brought the entire staff back. He could have brought his entire offensive staff back. You get to make those calls when you win 11 games and go to the playoffs. The fact that he changed out, not one, not two, not three, 4, maybe even 5 offensive coaches, it's going to be different. If you don't believe it, I got nothing for you.
He changed it, Dave, because they went backwards last year, right? Like they went forwards and then they went backwards, and it was easy to do that, and they kind of had to do it because of the injury situation. But when you add a guy like Dorsey, Charlton, Reese, Dickerson, Staley, and you say we're going to change what we do here, there's no going back, because he got rid of the safety blanket that was that staff, right? Along with other reasons like guys that can provide more answers offensively, guys with more creative mind in a that have called their own plays in college and things like that. There's a lot of reasons for this, but the offense is being changed to put Deshaun in the best position to be successful. And that's different than what they've done in the past. And it's gonna, it may not always look completely different. There's a lot of talk about the choice routes. Like, you're not going to be able to know on Sunday if it was a choice route when a guy catches the ball wide open over the middle of the field, right? Until you go back and look at like an all 22 footage. But they are doing things differently. Dorsey has had much control of the install, it's going to be different. There's no turning back this year, and that's why the overhaul on the staff, right? There's no going back to the old way of doing things. Now, will there still be aspects that look the same? Certainly. Like the play action game that Stefanski has used is incredibly effective, and I hope they don't get rid of that completely. But that's not what Deshaun does best. Can it still be effective at times? Sure. But yes, it will look different. It is different. And maybe it always won't look different, Dave, but it is.
So Deshaun Watson and Kevin Stefanski both talked about this year's offense and what it's going to look like today.
Yeah, Deshaun's doing great with everything. And, I would point to Dorsey does a great job of including the wide receivers. Just this morning, sitting with the quarterbacks, the wide receivers in meetings together, talking through different concepts that are new for all of us, maybe new for one or two of the players, and really having a dialogue from player to player, player to coach, making sure we all see it the same way. But all of those guys, in particular Deshaun, they've really done a great job of working hard at that.
He's a player's coach, and he really take information from the quarterback and all his skill guys, and he wants to maximize our opportunity and what we're seeing on the field. And then he, draws up him and Ken this year is doing a heck of a job of meeting together, communicating together in the offensive meeting rooms and then also in the QB meeting room. So we're not just hearing one voice; we're hearing multiple voices, and they're on the same page, as you can see, as what I can see. You guys haven't seen it yet, but Kevin is definitely, like I said before, he's the one reason that, big reason why I want to come to Cleveland and be a part of this system and, win a lot of games with him.
And again, Brad, that was from today. So they're kind of laying it out for you. They're reinventing this. And you're right. It may not. There are a finite number of plays in football. How you get to them is what is different.
Yeah, and to like we said, to look at it on Sunday, 11 personnel is going to look like 11 personnel, but they are going to be schematically differently in the run game and the pass game. This receiver stuff is really critical, and I think that the way that they are laying out and how important the choice routes are going to be. And I know it's like it's the buzzword, right? So you got to be everybody talking about it, but it really will be impactful, and it gives the receiver some freedom. The thing you got to be careful about is making sure that the receiver and the quarterback are seeing the same things the same way, or else then it becomes dangerous. But I think that there's no question that what they want to do is get their athletes the ball in space and let them create, and that's different than kind of what we've seen before, right? So they want this offense to be more explosive. They want to be able to generate easy yards, right? By threatening down the field and then taking advantage of what's there. And Deshaun talked a lot about this summer, and I feel like he's just even hearing him here, I feel like he's in a good mental place as far as receiving this offense as well. It seems like he's excited about it, which tells you something.
So I know you're an article, things you think you know about JOK contract negotiations. You mentioned the disconnect, and it seems like it happens. These things happen. Player thinks he should get one thing, and the owners aren't thinking that just yet.
Yeah, it's business. It's the business of football, right? Like, this is going to happen. Now, the JOK thing is kind of interesting if you examine it. So, JOK played 76% of the snaps last year, Dave. Now, they want him to be 100% guy or as close to it as you can. But when you look at the pay scale at other linebackers, and it's a wide range, which kind of makes it a more convoluted situation of what he's worth, right? But like Jermaine Pratt is the highest paid player that doesn't play like almost 100% of the snaps, and that's like at like $8.5 million. Now the top of the market is $20 million with Roquan Smith per year and Tremaine Edmonds. Now he shouldn't get that, but what we've kind of heard is that he does want top of the market money. Now I don't think he wants $20 million, but the other names to look at are guys like Patrick Queen at 13 and Matt Milano. If I were slotting him in, Dave, I would say he's better than Patrick Queen. He's better than Matt Milano. He's not as good as Tremaine Edmonds or Roquan Smith yet, right? So I feel like he slots somewhere in between there. So now you're talking about $13 to $15 million a year, which is probably, I would guess, what he's asking for. Our guy, Jack Duffin, said, when he predicted this contract, he said 10. So you can see where there might be a disconnect there. And I think once again, and I've talked about this, what they did with Delpit, they may follow that same model. Like, hey, we need to see you play 100% of the snaps if we're going to pay you like 100% of the snap guy. So that's why I kind of think this contract may come middle of the season or early December, very similar to Grant Delpit last year. Like, let's see you play 100% of the snaps, then we'll pay you like that. And that's why I think there's not a ton of urgency on it right now either.
Yeah, I think they'll eventually get it done. And if I'm JOK, I'm like, I had X amount tackles for loss, which was among you. There's a case to be made that he can look for more money. But yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly. They're going to wait and see, and he could very well move. He goes out and plays like he did the end part of last season. They're going to write him even a bigger check.
Yeah, I mean, he's a special player. Like, you've got to make the exception here. We talked about how they don't value linebackers so much, here and there, but you took him in the second round because he fell to you there, and you had to know that, if it worked out, you were going to have to pay him. Here we are. He's worth it. He's worth every penny, in my opinion. So I feel like they have to make this work somehow, because he's such a unicorn and a special kind of player. He's such a difference maker at linebacker. So I think they will come to an agreement, but I think that there's a precedent here for how many snaps you're playing, how much money you're making, and like I said, I do think he's better than those guys that are making 13. So I do I agree with you. I think he has a right to ask for more money at this point. But the Browns may be like, let's just see you play 100% of the snaps, and then we'll do it.
Absolutely. You know what? Those are good problems for a general manager to have. You have a guy that's producing, and you got to figure out what the right amount of money is to pay him. Brad Ward and I are going to step aside, take a quick timeout, other side of the break. Is it more likely the Browns make the Super Bowl or have a top 10 pick? We'll have a national pundit's answer to that question. Sports4CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Cash, moolah, greenbacks, toes, Skrilla, chips, bread and mold, cheddar, butter, lewd and scratch. Find the letters, make a match. Lettuce, gravy, game on the back for $30. That's a wrap. There's many words for cash, no doubt, but there's only one $30 cash word. Check it out. Cash word from Ohio Lottery. It's $30 show. Cash word, it's fun to go with millions of prizes, don't you know?
We continue talking Browns with Brad Ward from the Orange and Brown Report and the All Eyes on Cleveland podcast. Dan Graziano, ESPN's national football NFL analyst, on ESPN's Unsportsmanlike was asked, which is more likely, the Browns in the Super Bowl or the Browns picking in the top 10 in the NFL draft?
Oh, gosh. Geez. Well, the Browns' history is certainly a lot more of the latter than the former. They've never been in a Super Bowl. But I think it's the former. I think they're good enough to be that level of team. I'd be surprised if they were bad enough to have a top 10 pick in next year's draft. So I got to go with the former, even though, putting the Browns in the Super Bowl falls into the bold prediction category. But, I mean, good roster. Their head coach is now a two-time Coach of the Year, which is a relatively exclusive club in NFL history. They're well-run. They're well-built. They just need the quarterback to play like some facsimile of what they're paying him to be.
And, Brad, we tend to forget, the Browns haven't won let's be honest, haven't won their division since 1989. So I could see where the national perspective is, until you win your division, then you start thinking about Super Bowl. So I get it. But I would be much more surprised if the Browns are picking in the top 10 than if they're in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, that doesn't even seem like a realistic question. I feel like that would be that's just very, very far-fetched to feel like they could fall off with this level of talent, right? Especially after what we saw them do, in their as far in their depth as you can ask a team to go and still find a way to win. Yeah, I mean, can they, it is about Watson, right? And, he says, it's interesting how he says, some facsimile of what they, tried to purchase with, a level of play they expect from Watson. And that's kind of like where I'm at too. Like, you just need him to play like a top 15 guy. And I feel like they would do really well in the, regular season and challenge for the divisional title, right? Like, I think you just need that. Now, if we're talking about going and win a Super Bowl, you're going to need better than that, right? You need special for that. But that's all about getting hot at the right time. And, I kind of pointed this out the other day, Dave, and if you really think about it, I'm not trying to make all excuses possible for Watson, right? But, like, he hasn't been on the field for any stretch of games to get it, right? Like, we've seen him start to get it, and then he gets hurt or, he misses a game. He needs to play like a stretch of like 9-10 games, and I feel like we'll see him figure it out, and we'll start to see that player reemerge.
Yeah, again, 8-4 in the games he started. You take that, and he has been hurt, and he can't control that. So I get it, but I also understand the flip side of it is, it's been 3 years now, and we haven't really seen a consistent stretch of football yet. Well, Watson was asked today, he met with the media, how non-football things have affected him the last couple of years.
My character was getting challenge. And I know, like I said, I know who I am, and a lot of people never really knew my history or knew who I really was. So, they going based off other people's opinions and whatever other people are saying. But, yeah, I'm a person that like to have people like me. And I feel like a lot of people are like that. So sometimes, things in your brain, you just got to turn and you just got to be like, forget it. It is what it is. So.
Miles was saying that you seem down, especially after the injury. Do you feel like kind of unburdened now or free and more like yourself?
I mean, of course, yeah. I mean, I took 21 off, didn't play ball, had the, suspension, so missed a lot of ball, and I'm trying to come back. And, last year I thought that was going to be the year where I can play a full year and get, a full season under my belt, and the injury happened. So, I was there very disappointed and down, not just because, I couldn't show exactly what I can do for this organization. And, yeah, I understand that they put a lot into me, but, sometimes the injuries you can't control. So a lot of things kind of, didn't fall in place the last 2 years, but, praying and taking them one day at a time that everything do this year.
And, Brad, I get the sense nobody wants to play better than Deshaun Watson. I truly think what has gone on with him bothers him. And people say, he's got the guaranteed money. Guys like that want to be winners.
Yeah, there's no question. I don't think that he wants to turn – like, his redemption is in his success, right? So, and like he – very candid there, right? Like, I'll go back to it again. I think that whoever got him on this podcast this offseason and kind of got him out there to answer questions and talk about things in a different light, in kind of a controlled, they controlled the questions. Quincy Avery was asking him, but he was able to be honest and candid. Here he comes across as actually very genuine, where that's kind of been an issue in the past, where he wasn't believable to people. I think he's in a better place mentally that way. It was a very candid answer, right? Like, I like people to like me, and when everybody in the world hates you, that's going to affect you 100%. So interesting stuff, and surprisingly genuine and candid answer. And you like to see it because you think that that's progress for sure.
All right, you wrote an article, 3 most important backups on the Browns 2024. One of them, Jameis Winston, 2, Cameron Mitchell, 3, Alex Wright. Take us through that one.
Yeah, so obviously Jameis, for obvious reasons, 5 quarterbacks last year, 4 of them with wins. Deshaun, you hope he stays healthy, knock on something, and I think that he has the opportunity to do that. But if they're going to win the division finally, if he has to miss a game here or there, Winston gives you the ability to go out and win a tough game in a spot start, right? Like, and that will be critical to not, having to phone a game in because you're missing QB1. So I think Winston is by far the most important backup because he may have to play a couple games, and those games will be critical to them trying to win the division this year. You can't just drop a game because QB1 is out, right? And then Cameron Mitchell, and I wrote this before. We learned about Greg Newsome's injury situation, but here you have it again. If you go back and look at it every year, Dave, you have Denzel Ward missing 2 to 3 games. And in Newsome's career, he's missed 2 to 3 games in every year but 1. So, yeah, you've got to have somebody that can step in and not miss a beat, especially when they're asking the amount of press man and back end ability to cover that they are in their scheme, right? Like, so much depends on them being able to cover and long enough for them to get pressure. So, I thought Cam Mitchell flashed last year that he can do it, but he will be called on this year, and already we're seeing that because, it looks like Greg's already had surgery or whatever. And then lastly, Alex Wright, and this is just because you have guys like Myles Garrett and Zadarius Smith who are kind of, that's going to scare every opponent, right? Your 2 edges are superstars. So if one of them was asked to go away or was forced to miss time a couple games, you would need somebody with the same physical body type. Alex Wright is a big boy, who can go out there and stop the run, right? So, a lot of times they're going to go light off one side and bigger off the other in non-obvious passing situations. So my concern for this defense, especially the stuff with Dalvin knee and stuff like that, and their change of kind of scheme from a 3 technique to the 2-eye, as Kevin was talking about today, on one side, is that stopping the run. If you have any time without Tomlinson, he is such a space eater. They don't really have anybody that does the same thing. So same thing at edge. Za'Darius, so good against the run. Miles, very good against the run. I think that the guy that could fill in and do that is Alex Wright. So you hope he takes another step forward. His just body type fits ideally, and you may need to call on him this year to do that.
Brad Ward, Orange and Brown Report, All Eyes on Cleveland podcast as always. Great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Brad.
Thank you for having me, Dave. You are the best.
Brad Ward, make sure you check him out. He is the co-host of the All Eyes on Cleveland podcast. Also, always really good stuff for the Orange and Brown Report. We're going to continue talking Browns. We'll take a quick timeout. Other side of the break, Jacob Roach from Browns Wire and the Barking Browns podcast, Sports4CLE. He'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
Cash, moolah, greenbacks, toes, Skrilla, chips, bread and mold, cheddar, butter, lewd and scratch. Find the letters, make a match. Lettuce, gravy, game on the back for $30. That's a wrap. There's many words for cash, no doubt, but there's only one $30 cash word. Check it out. Cash word from Ohio Lottery. It's $30 show. Cash word, it's fun to go with millions of prizes, don't you know?
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve.
Because I am a future leader of this great nation.
I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family.
And educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in.
I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams. I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
FCCLA has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hey guys, last year the Browns had their bye week on week 5. Did the Browns gain an advantage with their week 10 bye this season, heading into that gauntlet of playoff caliber teams to finish the season? And will help them with the playoffs if they should make it. Seemed like we were losing a starter every week halfway into last season with no chance to recover fully, including the playoffs. Or does the bye week when it hits even matter? We need all the help we can get with this highly difficult schedule. Go Browns!
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Let's welcome in Jacob Roach from BrownsWire.com as well as the Barking Browns podcast. Jacob, I suppose I'd rather have the bye week later as opposed to earlier. I don't know if it's an advantage, but it can't hurt.
Yeah, I think that one thing about that early bye that you got to think about that is the amount of consecutive weeks they're playing after that bye. Like, I don't know, like, all the science behind it or anything like that, but yeah, like, if you're talking about week 6 on, you're not getting a break, like, you're just playing football week after week after week, it just slowly adds up. So, like, being able to put that right in the middle, I think it can also, not just from an injury standpoint, but from a coaching standpoint, give you, like, you're halfway, let's review everything, see where we are as an offense, as a defense, and I think that it also puts you in a position where, you know, going down the stretch for the playoff, like he said, like the question was about the gauntlet. Yeah, I would like that gauntlet to have a little extra time to heal up and also to prep for them. So maybe it's not a massive advantage, but I think it is better to have it a little later than week 5.
Yeah, the only thing is if you're beat up coming out of training camp, maybe the early bye week helps. But yeah, I'm with you. Myles Garrett, Defensive Player of the Year, talked today and mentioned just how tough the AFC looks to be this year.
It's a slaughterhouse over in the AFC. But, guys who come out of it are usually the top dog in the NFL. So we look forward to it, especially in our division. We know that it's going to be gritty, grimy. It's going to be tough. Every AFC North game. So we are excited every time we get to share the field with those guys, compete against those guys, and those kind of matchups. They don't lie in the back of my mind. We look forward to those every single time. So whether it's the Dolphins or it's the Chiefs, it's the Bills, Ravens, all of them. We look forward to those guys, and we look forward to making a statement every time we step on the field with great teams like that.
And Jacob, the unstated is there's a built-in disadvantage to playing in the AFC North, and that's that you have to play the other teams in that division an additional time.
Yeah, not to mention, the Dolphins and the Chiefs and some of the teams that he named that you're going to face. It's if you make the playoffs out of the AFC North this year, you earned it. There's no way to dispute that because you get the, I know that some people are down on the Steelers, but as long as Mike Tomlin is there with that organization, we can't count them out until they actually lose. Like going into the season, we may always be like, I don't know how the Steelers are going to do it, but they always find a way to do it. And Lamar Jackson just got another MVP. Joe Burrow's healthy and T. Higgins is going to be there another year. Like you've got a lot of high power offenses in the AFC, and then in the AFC North, just a lot of hard-nosed, gritty teams that just battle bad weather. It doesn't matter. They find ways to win. And it's just like, if you find a way to win a majority of your games in this division, in this conference, you've earned it. Nobody can undersell that at all. The road to the Super Bowl through the AFC is very, very difficult. But I will say you're facing a lot of good quarterbacks. The Browns are built the way that you want to be built on defense to make it through that. Being able to rush the passer, have a ton of great coverage guys that can confuse and frustrate some of these great quarterbacks. So having a great pass rush and a great secondary, they have the only counter you could really have, I think, to make it through against these offenses.
All right, so this one's from Browns Wire. 5 burning questions the Browns must answer in training camp. Number 1, who will step up at tight end behind David Njoku? Number 2, how does the back end of the wide receiver room shake out? Number 3, are the top tackles healthy and ready for 2024? Number 4, when will we see Nick Chubb back on the field? We told you earlier, running and doing some agility things today in front of the owner and the medical staff. And number 5 is Deshaun Watson. Is his shoulder ready for the season? Let's start there. Back-to-back days thrown, first time 11 on 11. So he's progressing, being Watson.
He's hitting those benchmarks that you want him to hit, that they, every time they seem to so far in OTAs, in minicamp, and now the first couple of days of training camp, every time they've put a benchmark in front of him, he seemed to have been able to hit it, check that box, and move on. Yeah, the 11 on 11 thing was huge for me because it was like, how long is it going to take for them to put him in that situation because they've avoided it to this point? And on top of that, back-to-back days to start camp that's probably the biggest portion of that really gives me hope about talking about his shoulder being ready for the year, because we just had not seen him practice in back-to-back days. He hadn't thrown, he hadn't done that thing. And now he did back-to-back days. And on that second day, it was more than he had done before. So it's not just, he did a little light throwing. He went through the motions, anything. No, they put him on full blown 11 on 11 for the first time on a consecutive day for the first time. So those benchmarks are being hit. So right now I'm very optimistic, at least about the shoulder side of things with Deshaun Watson.
All right. So the top two tackles unable to go so far. And then Nick Chubb, he looks like he's trending in the right direction. I want to be cautious, but every time from what I'm told, he looked pretty normal when he was running and cutting today.
I'm the same way, Dave. I keep wanting to be like, hey, let's pump the brakes. I don't know. He's coming back. It's a really bad injury. It's the second time on that knee. And then something else happens, and I'm reminded that Nick Chubb is not human. Like, the fact that he is going out there, and everybody that was there, they didn't allow anybody to film it, so we don't know 100% unless you were there to see it. But everybody that I've read from multiple people, it appeared that he was running at full speed. It appeared he was out there doing it for potentially an hour after practice, like a long portion of this. He was cutting, doing agility drills. Naheem Hines was with him doing that stuff too, which is huge because he's also working his way back from a knee injury. And I just can't say to pump the brakes anymore at this point. It's just like, I think that it is very real that Chubb is back at the beginning of the season. I think they will be cautious. So if he does play, maybe some pitch count and some things like that. But each time I say, yeah, but if he does this, I'll really buy into it. Then he does that. So at this point, I think that you need to start thinking that he's going to be there sooner rather than later on the field to start the season.
And then you've got back into the wide receiver room. In my mind, you're looking for guys that have upside in the future. And relative to backup tight end or tight end behind David Njoku, we may not know that one until roster cutdown day. They may bring somebody else in.
That's where I'm at on the tight end room. That's where I kind of think. I think the wild card, the guy that has been getting some buzz is Zaire Mitchell-Payton. So I think I would like to see what he looks like come preseason, that sort of thing. I think there's some veterans that are going to get cut, and they're probably going to go looking for a tight end, like you said, on cutdown day if they don't keep Zaire Mitchell-Payton. I just remember them like a couple of years ago signing Jesse James at the beginning of the year. I think that's probably ultimately what they do. They go find a blocking veteran that has been around, that is available as they're going into the season, and kind of probably pull the trigger on that, making him the guy that plays behind David Njoku. The back end of the wide receiver room, I'm really interested between David Bell and Michael Woods. I think those guys currently, I think Michael Woods is on the outside looking in, and I think David Bell is kind of on the fringe, because Michael Woods is interesting because he's similar to Cedric Tillman in terms of bringing that size and physicality, not quite the level of size, physicality, and athleticism blend that Tillman has. But Woods brings a little bit of a different skill set to, and I think he was having a really good camp a couple of years ago before he got hurt then as well. And then you look at David Bell, who's more just a possession guy, but he's going to be where he's supposed to be when he's going to be there. And it's like, which one of those would you rather? The guy that I think David Bell has a lower ceiling, but a higher floor. So would you rather that, or would you go with the wild card that's Michael Woods to round out the back end of that second wide receiver room? Because I think Jamari Thrash's athletic profile, I think he's number 5 on that list, and I think he's a shoe-in.
All right. So Deshaun Watson met with media today, was asked how his approach this year is different than it's been the last couple years with the Browns.
I think, honestly, it's really just, blocking out all the bullshit, honestly, outside. It was tough coming in 2 years, different environment, different, different team, different all that. So, you come in and, your character's been, mentioned this way, and then, it kind of flip on you, and you're trying to, biggest thing, you're trying to get people to, like you or improve. But now it's like, at the end of the day, it's 2 years in, and if you don't, like me, or you have your own opinions, then forget it. It is what it is. So I think blocking out all the noise and focusing on me, and focusing on what I need to do to be the best Deshaun Watson I can be for myself, my family, and my teammates.
Jacob, I've said that he seems much more comfortable, much more confident in that should be a good thing on the field.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you look in the first year, obviously he was facing the suspension. That stuff came down during training camp. So you were really kind of in limbo for a lot of that stuff, trying to learn a new system, learn a new city, like he talked about. And last year, I think he put so much pressure on himself, like to be a star right away because of all the off the field, because of all the buzz that he heard all off season long after struggling in the 6 games that he played in the first year. And it does seem like he's kind of got his footing, that he feels comfortable with. He's been around Kevin Stefanski in the organization now for a couple of years. I think they're all on the same page on the direction that they want to take this offense. And I think settling in maybe is probably the best way to kind of characterize it based on the way Watson has talked. And so I think he's settled in. He's comfortable. He's focused on playing football, trying not to worry about all that other stuff that he cannot do anything about. And so he needs to just go out there, take care of business. And I think he's going to do that.
Jacob Roach from BrownsWire.com, the Barking Browns podcast, and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out, other side of the break. We'll hear more from Deshaun Watson. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program is dedicated to recognizing exceptional students, teachers, and schools throughout Ohio. Scan the QR code on screen to nominate students and teachers as Academic All-Stars and Teachers of the Month. They must be currently enrolled or teach in grades K through 12. Is your K through 12 school developing students' literacy skills to achieve success in reading? If so, you can nominate your school for the School of the Year. Students can win $100, teachers can win $500, and schools can win $2,500. Scan the QR code, fill out the forms, and nominate deserving students, teachers, and schools today. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program takes pride in honoring exceptional students, teachers, and schools across Ohio. Submit your nomination today. It's fun, fast, and free. We continue talking Browns with Jacob Roach from BrownsWire.com and the Barking Browns podcast. Deshaun Watson met with media today, talked about the design of this year's Browns offense.
It's very unique. I think it's just not just for the quarterback perspective, but I think it's just for all the skill set that we have at receiver. I think it's a different skill set that you guys have all seen in the receiver room. We got very elusive guys that can play all positions. We got different tight ends. It's not just, one tight end that can be very athletic. We got 3 tight ends that can play receiver, that can play in the backfield, that can play out wide. We got running backs that is very shifty. We got a lot of different things that is different than what most people that watch this organization have seen. So you got to put all that together. You got to take all that in perspective, and if you can do that, and then you put that in place. You start with the quarterback, obviously, and then you kind of trickle out to everyone else. All right, what is people good at? How can we, give different looks and put people in different positions so they can execute their skill set too. It's all in one.
So, Jacob, when I listen to that, they're going to try to exploit matchups a little bit more than they have in the past. As opposed to a timing and rhythm, they're looking for matchups to exploit.
Yeah, they're looking to make it more dynamic, I think is probably the best way I could kind of categorize it. And I know we talk almost ad nauseum about the kind of the option routes that Ken Dorsey kind of brings in, and just find ways to not just utilize Deshaun Watson's skill set, but like he said, the different types of wide receivers. Amari Cooper is going to be in the right spot at the right time always. That's what he does. Elijah Moore is a shifty, can get vertical kind of wide receiver. They didn't use him enough vertically, and that kind of talked about some of the struggles of the deep ball from the quarterbacks and that kind of thing. But I think they want to confuse defenses. I think they're trying to bring all the right blends and try to cover up weaknesses in certain areas of what they've done in the past, and just be a little less predictable so that they can take themselves to another level, so that when they face some of the elite defenses, especially in the playoff, they're not so predictable at times. And some of that timing and rhythm at times, it can be predictable. And that's what I think they kind of ran into with DeMeco Ryans in the playoffs. They were running the same stuff they'd been running since Joe Flacco had been there. And there wasn't enough, choice routes and just ways to confuse the defense. They knew what was coming. They knew how to stop it. And I think they're trying to put put this collaborative process together to it's not just going to be Stefanski's offense or Ken Dorsey's offense. They want to create a hybrid offense with all these different minds and ideas that they've brought in and just make it something that can attack a defense week in, week out without becoming predictable.
All right, so this is from Dog Pound Daily, 3 Browns sleepers who could steal a roster spot during training camp. Number 1, quarterback Tyler Huntley. Number 2, linebacker Muhammad Diabate. And number 3, Trenton Welsh, free agent, undrafted free agent, rookie out of Wyoming, a tight end. It's going to be tough. This roster is so loaded, it's going to be tough for anybody to steal a roster spot.
It's so fun, too, because we're talking about the third quarterback, fourth quarterback. We're talking probably linebacker. Diabate would probably be linebacker 5 if he made the roster, maybe 6. And with Trenton Welch, yeah, it'd be the third one, but it would be just as kind of break in case of emergency signing. But it's really hard to try to predict these things because, like, I would say 35 to 40 of the 53 roster spots are probably locked up, barring injury or something crazy happening. So it's going to be really hard to make this roster. The last 2 years, we have seen an undrafted free agent make the roster. So Trenton Welch, he's got a chance. He's in a room that doesn't have much outside the top 2 guys, and so he's got an opportunity there. By a pure numbers game. They just don't have enough rosterable tight ends. So I think out of those 3, he probably has the best spot. But I will say that Diabate can be really interesting just because he was most effective in college as a pass rusher, as a kind of stand-up TJ Watt outside linebacker kind of thing. And you can never have enough pass rush. So if they have, if they get an injury, especially at defensive end or something like that, I think he could sneak on the roster for special teams and pass rush. Huntley, it's going to be about injuries. They're going to need an injury to keep him. But yeah, those 3 make sense, but I wouldn't be surprised if none of them make it because the roster is just too good.
Yeah, and again, I'm with you on Welsh. If he shows the ability to find a way to get free and become a problem in pass routes, absolutely, it could be the third tight end. All right, before I let you go, Deshaun Watson talked about the addition of Jerry Jeudy today and what he brings to this offense.
He's explosive. He's very elusive. Get the ball in his hands, let him work in space. He's just like Coop and Elijah. Guys can run routes, and they take pride in that. So they're very detailed. We watch tape every morning and every night, just going over maybe 1 or 2 routes. Okay, this is what I'm seeing. What are you saying? We're getting on the same page. So when we get to those games, it just worked like clockwork. And just, the timing and the execution is very good. So, AB is doing a heck of a job of putting guys around us, and we got to put it together so we can go out there and score a lot of points for this team and help this team win.
That it kind of gets back to what we were talking about with the offense. It'll be really interesting to see week in and week out how you use Cooper, how you use Jeudy, how you use Elijah Moore, and don't forget how you use David Njoku.
Yeah, and we've talked all summer long, Dave, about yards after the catch and finding a way to be able to create something out of nothing. And that's where Jerry Jeudy's at his best. And Watson even highlighted that. You get the ball in his hands and let him work. I mean, David Njoku was really the only guy that consistently produced after the catch last year, and you can't survive off of one guy being the only one that really creates yardage. And yeah, Amari Cooper, he does some here and there, but just not quite on the level I think that Jerry Jeudy can kind of do. But I think, Watson talked at some point during this offseason on his podcast about taking what's there. And you see that in this conversation again. Like, you don't have to go for the home run on every play. Sometimes it is enough to let your playmakers and your athletes get the ball in space and let them do what they're paid to do. And I think that's the difference with Jerry Jeudy in here. And I think it makes it easier for Elijah Moore to separate down the field and do those sorts of things because they know that there's guys that are excel underneath in Jeudy and Njoku and getting the ball quickly and exploding for extra yardage. And I think it's just going to have a ripple effect on this offense.
Jacob Roach, BrownsWire.com, as always. Great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Jacob.
Thanks, guys.
Jacob Roach, make sure you check him out. You can read him brownswire.com. He is also the co-host of the Barking Browns podcast. We're just upside take one more time out. Other side of the break, Lance Reisland with a film breakdown video analysis. Sports for CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Cash, moolah, greenbacks, toes, Skrilla, chips, bread and mold, cheddar, butter, lewd and scratch. Find the letters, make a match. Lettuce, gravy, game on the back for $30. That's a wrap. There's many words for cash, no doubt, but there's only one $30 cash word. Check it out. Cash word from Ohio, lottery. It's $30, yo. Cash word, it's fun to go with millions of prizes, don't you know?
We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. Let's welcome in Lance Reisland from the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com, film breakdown, video analysis. And Lance, before they put the pads on and get things going at Greenbrier, I thought it'd be interesting to take a look. The defensive performance against the Texans in that playoff loss, how you correct it, and Jim Schwartz has kind of talked a little bit about it as well. So let's kind of go through that and what you saw when you looked at that again, the loss to the Texans from a defensive side of things.
Well, I've been asking a lot about the loss of the Texans the last couple months, especially leading into the year, and people asking me, what are they going to do different? And I may stand alone on the mountain here, but Browns don't have to do anything different defensively. They had a couple bad lapses. It shows that football is a team game. They got to play on both sides of the ball, which they struggled a little bit. They did have some issues in terms of not rushing the passer, and I think they'll make some adjustments with some A and B gap pressure. But the final score wasn't indicative of how they played. They did, once again, like I said, they didn't cause any pressure. But I don't think the ceiling was falling in with the Browns defense against the Texans. I give Bobby Sloat a lot of credit on some of his calls. And when you play a make or break defense, you're gonna give up some plays against good players. And what you have to do is you have to respond offensively. And that's why Deshaun Watson's here, right? That's why they're paying him the money, because they think he can respond. NFL teams are going to make plays, and the Browns have to stick to their identity and do what they do. And, I went back and I've broken that film down a couple times in the last couple months, and they didn't play as bad as people think. They just were inconsistent and didn't get pressure, which is something they kind of hung their hat on.
So the first thing we take a look at here is run game issues. Take us through this clip, what we see here.
Going through the clip first, you're going to see Will Anderson, the defensive end, as the stop goes again. And you're going to see him come down. The Browns are going to tackle over him. Will Anderson is going to take 64, Jerron Christian, who's now with the Titans, and he's going to jam Christian down. And you're going to see as he jams Christian down, Christian is unable to get to the linebacker, Cashman. So this is an idea of playing almost like more gap control and not what the Browns do. So he gets his hands on him, and by him getting his hands on Christian, the linebacker is able to run free to make the tackle for a loss. And this is kind of what you got. Now, my point of this clip is this. I think with Dorsey, you're not going to see, so as the clip stands again, you're going to see 9 guys in there. So they can still run this power look, but now I think they're going to run it out of 11 personnel, which means there should be only 6 guys in the box. So the Browns have been notorious, and I agree with, sometimes you want to make a point, sometimes you want to impose your will. But, during a game, you want to get some guys out of the box so your lineman can block linemen. There's just too many people in there to block on this play, and the Texans play it well.
All right, so again, you figure you spread it out, and you're mentioning 11 personnel, 1 tight end, 1 back, 3 wide receivers. That should lighten the boxes up. Next point that we look at, quarterback decisions. Take us through this one.
So you're going to see as a play starts and stops, you're going to see the Browns are looking for a quick out up top. The Texans do a great job of disguising coverages, so Flacco works inside. Unfortunately, when Flacco works inside, Harris does not move. So as the play goes again, you're going to see Harris, the linebacker, not move. And he anticipates with the corner. He works hand in hand with the corner. He knows the corner is going to get underneath the out route, and so he sits on the next route, which is inside. And this is really good film study by these guys. They had a good plan, and they made some good plays. Going back to how do you fix against the Texans? Well, those 2 pick sixes hurt back-to-back. And this is not a reflection on Joe Flacco because he played great, but without having feet, without having the ability to run for first downs, I think really hurt the Browns in this game. The ability to have that quarterback spread out, maybe the quarterback get up there and get 4 or 5 yards on those key third downs with his feet. That's something Deshaun Watson will give you. So I think he needs to get down and not take any punishment. But again, quarterback play. It's not all defense. 14 points had nothing to do with the defense. 14 points were on the offense. So that immediately takes you already down to 31 points. So it wasn't nearly as bad defensively as people thought. The quarterback kind of made some mistakes, which he hadn't made to that point, and they were in that position because of him, though. So just didn't have a good day.
All right, so we've looked at a couple of the offensive issues. Now, there were some defensive issues without question. Take us through these clips, what you see here as well.
Well, let's go through the clips first. So first of all, you're going to get a great concept by Slow It. Now, the problem is on this first one is that the Browns were in cover 2 or had 2 high safeties. And when you're 2 high safeties, it's not that they got beat. It's the fact that they didn't know where it was. So as you get back to the start here, you'll see. So Newsome, who's on the other half, he comes up, and for some reason he's going to take the guy dragging at about 15 yards, which you don't know if he needs help. So my point is, I don't know why they weren't man. That's what got him there. So let's go back here and we'll take a look here. So first, you're going to see Newsome jump up. That kind of put Hickman in a bad spot. This is what they got to do. They got to find options for JOK, put him in space, let him make more plays. Then this is a great play. This is great call by Bobby Slow. It's okay that they scored. Got to rally. I think Thornhill's calf hurt him. That's okay. And then this one is really bad. This is, it's a great play call versus right here is where the Browns got to make a tackle. So that 76-yard play could have been a 15-yard play if Emerson makes that tackle. Emerson has been tackling great. So the point of all these clips for me is this. The Browns are an aggressive man team. They have to tackle in space. They have to find ways to get – they have two generational players on that defense right now. Obviously, and I think Ward could be 3. But JOK and Myles Garrett are generational players that need to find matchups. So they need to do that. Then when they – at times the defense is going to be in a bad spot because of man coverage and because of good play calls. If that happens, they have to tackle. And they have to keep these plays to 15, not 76-yard touchdown passes. So, again, you have a long touchdown pass. You have a really good play call. There's some things that they need to sharpen up, but they did some good things too. It's just a matter, when you get in the playoffs, everybody's good. Everybody's got to be good on that day, and I think the Browns will be fine.
Well, the other thing that we've heard is kind of Jim Schwartz say they need, that curveball, the off-speed pitch, and that means we are who we are, but there are times when somebody who is trying to expose what we do well, we can move to this. And they didn't do that. And Schwartz said that was because they wanted to concentrate on doing things at a high level. I get that, and I don't disagree with it.
Yeah, so that's a really good point. So when I look at what the Browns do inside the red zone, right? So they're a man pressure team. Well, especially when you get inside the 10, sometimes that man coverage can really hurt you because they'll bring receivers from one side to the other, and it's really hard for a man defender to get to the other side. So maybe they play a little umbrella zone down inside the 5 or 10 yard line. Maybe they change it up and play a little bit more zone where notoriously you play man. You're right, and then they didn't have any sacks against the Texans. All right, so you got to get C.J. Stroud off his spot. So maybe they create more A and B gap pressures. And again, those are adjustments that weren't made that they went back and looked at. Jim Schwartz is a Hall of Fame type defensive coordinator. He'll figure it out. It's just the fact that the Texans had a good plan and the Browns didn't respond. I think they will now, and they've gotten better, and they've gotten even more depth on defense. So I think they'll be even better.
So the final point that we have, stay healthy. Take us through this clip, and we're aware they went through a number of quarterbacks and some offensive linemen too.
So here's my thing. So this is Hudson, and this is not by any means a discredit to Hudson. I think he does a great job. He is forced into playing left and right tackle and everywhere else. He's also a guy who's in their big packages when people are healthy. So he's got to play left. He's got to play right. They just had too many injuries on both sides of the football. Going back to their tailback. When you don't have Nick Chubb, that's a generational guy. That changes your offense. And then they lose the tackles. And then they had some defensive injuries, and they lost some guys during the year. Those are going to happen. They've improved their depth, but you can't have 5 quarterbacks and 3 and 4 and 5 tackles play and expect to be consistent. Now, they're pros, and people have said, Lance, when they're pros, they should be good. Well, these guys aren't starters for a reason. They're really good. They're NFL guys, but the starters are there for a reason as well. And they got to figure out a way to stay healthy, and they got to figure out a way to stay healthy for 17 weeks. And if they do that, I think it'll all come together pretty well for them this fall.
Yeah, and you would think that injuries are the kind of thing that even out. Had a bad year last year with injuries. You mentioned 5 quarterbacks. They were on their 5th and 6th tackles at times. So knock on whatever's around. Hopefully it's more health, better health this year for the Browns.
And obviously, Deshaun Watson, we'll go right from Deshaun Watson, right? It's an NFL-driven league, and he gets hurt, right? He plays really good against the Ravens, and he's hurt. And obviously, you lost Nick Chubb against the Steelers, and you lose the tackles, and you lose the backup quarterbacks, and you lose all these guys. Then you lost some guys in there 2 to 3 weeks with hamstring and soft tissue issues. So it just seemed like it was a snowball of a year in terms of trying to stay healthy. Now, health happens to everybody. Injuries happens to everybody in the NFL. And I think the Browns did a great job of not using it as an excuse. And obviously they made the playoffs and did really well, and they had a great record with all those injuries. So I just think, I know injuries are going to happen, but I don't think injuries are going to happen to the extent they did last fall. Once in a while, you just, for some reason, the snowball starts rolling downhill and you can't stop it. For some reason, they just could not stop getting injured and getting nicked and not playing. So if they're a healthy football team or a fairly healthy football team, they're going to be a very tough out for anybody they play this fall.
Lance Reisland, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Lance.
As always, thanks for having me.
Lance Reisland, make sure you check him out. Always really good and insightful coverage, film breakdown, video analysis. He will be heading to the Greenbrier next week, so make sure you check him out, cleveland.com, as well as the Plain Dealer. That'll do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. Have a great weekend, everybody. We will see you back here Monday at 4 on Sports for CLE.